Hi everyone, we wanted to make a quick video. Well, it's not going to be that quick. So we wanted to make a video to give you guys an update about Jenny's healing stuff, because we mentioned that her scans came back clear and that we would give you an update. So for me personally, this is really special for all kinds of reasons. One, because of my wife, obviously, and our children and our family and our hopes for our future. This is like one of the most, this is, besides our kids being born, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, and I'm super grateful for what's been done, and I'm super grateful for all of your participation in it, your hearts, your prayers, your care for us. And it's been it's one of those things where it's like this disaster and it turns out to be this beautiful gift. And of course it says to rejoice always, pray continuously, give thanks in all circumstances. Well, how could you give thanks when there's a cancer diagnosis? How could you give thanks when somebody's hurt? How could you give thanks when somebody's dying? That was the question that I had to grapple with, and I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that it says that's the will of God for you in Christ Jesus. So there's something to that. Like when something's not going your way, if you can muster up the gumption to praise the Lord. We like to put on worship music. I think there's power in that. I think there's faith. I think it's an act of faith to sing worship music when you're downtrodden, and I think it moves mountains. At least it does for us who have a heart. People who have a heart for worship. I'm sure that's true for many people. So when I first turned my life over to Jesus, it was on the tail end of like a decade and a half of every kind of new age spiritual mumbo jumbo that you could possibly get your hands on. Everything from being a Kundalini yoga teacher to an NLP master practitioner, you name it. I did everything I could think of to the tune of 40 grand worth of transformational work, and it all left me empty. It didn't work. I was not satisfied with who I was internally as a human being, and I had a big life event that was catastrophic in a relationship, and I found myself with a Bible in my hands, and and when I first turned my life over to Jesus, I was super interested in the supernatural, and I made that like a kind of I was attracted into the Bethel music scene, and because of that, and that's what was going on up there. I was super drawn into the idea that that Jesus was capable of healing like cancers and bones and all this stuff. And I read a bunch of books about it. I drove up to Reading numerous times to their healing events. I ended up flying down to Texas to go to a Todd White event. I was just like immersed in that world, and I'd come back and I'd continue going to church at Twin Cities. And what I noticed is I just wasn't noticing these kind of healings, and I wasn't noticing the supernatural. I was noticing all kinds of transformation in myself, and I chalked that up as being sufficient for my evidence of the miraculous power of Jesus. And I let it go, and I figured that I would be one of the people who are blessed who have not seen but still believe. And I just kind of wrote it off at that, and I let it go. And I kept praying and praying for people and different things, and I never really saw like an expression of the power of the Holy Spirit on the other end of my prayers. I don't know why, but I think God had a plan for revealing Himself in our lives, and I didn't ever expect that it would happen through my wife, and I'm super grateful that it did. So, coming all the way forward into our relationship, it was the first. Right after we got married, within a week of being married, Jenny was diagnosed with breast cancer, and our then 11-month-old baby came to live with us unexpectedly. And Jenny moved in, and all the kids moved in, and I went from being single bachelor to having all these kids, our whole family, and my 11-month-old baby all living with us, and Jenny's cancer diagnosis. It was super intense. And Jenny did all the things necessary. She fought against her insurance company, who was trying to deny her treatment, specialized treatment at UCSF. She had to jump through a bunch of hoops to that end to make it happen. There was an event that occurred in her care that precipitated their authorization for her to go down there. That was something you can call it a big blunder that turned out to be a huge blessing. And and so she did all the things. She did chemo. She did surgery. She did this. What was it called? The cryogenic treatment thing, where they freeze your fingers
Oh,
and your.
yeah, I did cold capping to keep my hair and froze my hands and feet to prevent neuropathy from the chemotherapy.
So for those of you that don't know what that is, she literally took like dry ice down there with freezer packs, like in a cooler, a big bunch of freezer packs that were specially designed to go on your fingers, on your head, and on your feet, right? And her and her mom would go down there as a team, pick up the dry ice, show up at the chemo treatment, and they literally would freeze her hands, scalp, and feet. Like
Set a bunch of timers and change them out every 20 minutes,
I'm talking
rotating.
like freeze them. Like she had to go through the pain of her limbs freezing and thawing. Literally, she came home one day with her finger all swollen and gnarled looking, and
And white
and white
and solid.
and solid. Like she literally froze her fingertip. Like she didn't realize that the ice
It
pack
was
was.
so painful. I couldn't.
She didn't realize the ice pack was in contact with her flesh, and this ice pack was like negative 20 degrees, and it literally froze her finger solid. Like this is the kind of stuff that she endured. And on the other side of it, it looked like it worked. Like they couldn't find any. They considered it to be a success, right?
Yeah.
And so that was about a year long journey, and we were like,
I had
okay,
surgery and radiation.
yeah, surgery, radiation, chemo, all the stuff. It was gnarly. I mean, it was super gnarly, and you responded well to it, and we thought it was over
Yeah.
with.
They said I was cancer free.
Yeah, we were like, okay, well, that was pretty gnarly. Let's not do that again. And then 6 months later, they went back for routine test, and they found a little mass in her breast again, and they assumed that it was scar tissue because her treatment protocol had been like successful, so they just assumed that that was scar tissue. 6 months later, she goes back for another mammogram, and this thing has grown now. This is not good. So they do like an emergency biopsy, right? Like get her back in there in 3 days from now to do a biopsy. We have to find out what this is. The report comes back and says she has encapsulated breast cancer, which means it hasn't spread outside the breast duct, which supposedly is good news. That means a mastectomy will take care of it. So Jenny's coming to terms with mastectomy, right? And she's like, that was not a small thing to come to terms with. Like for Jenny, she's like kind of a quintessential woman. I mean, she does birthing, care as her career. Like she's got a giant tattoo on her back of like female stuff that represents her connection with being a woman, and so like coming to terms with mastectomy was like a big thing, but it was optimistic because they said it was going to be done, like that would work. And then right at about the time she's scheduling this mastectomy, she notices she's like combing through the reports coming back from the hospital, and she's noticing that there's an addendum to the biopsy from the scans that were done at the time when the biopsy happened that said that something doesn't look right. Like it doesn't, the scans don't look like encapsulated breast cancer. So,
Yeah.
so Jenny ends up. Am I on track with this so far?
Yeah, I mean, I was preparing for my doctor's appointment with my oncologist, and it was just like a check-in because the surgeon was taking over because there was nothing for the oncologist to do for me.
Right, right. So we're thinking, okay, so mastectomy, and she's gonna live, and this is good, and that'll get rid of the cancer
Yeah.
and the breasts, and that won't be like maybe we don't have to worry about that anymore. And then this addendum comes back and says, wait a minute, it looks funny, something's not right. So they get her down there for an emergency scan, and this is where we got a call from her doctor, and they told her that it had metastasized, and it was in your bones, right? And it was showing up
Yes.
in different places in the bones, right?
So before that, I just want to mention that I had been, after the cancer came back and I was facing this mastectomy, I went into like deep despair. Like I could not.
Oh, that's right.
I was crying all day,
That's right.
every day,
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
really, really having a hard time with hope. And I one day just felt like I was washed with immense joy and peace. And like gratitude for life. And this was before we even knew it was stage 4. And I stopped Matthew. He came walking in the room, and I was like, what have you been doing? Have you been praying for me? And he told me that he had been reaching out for prayer from the whole community for me. And that, you know, God had comforted me. And in that comfort, he had told me everything's going to be okay.
So this is a really important thing. When I made the first video and put it out to the community that I needed prayer for my wife, that's when peace washed over Jenni. That's when the Lord told her that she was going to be well. And that word, that prophetic word that Jenni received, never changed, carried her through the entire thing. Honestly, it was an inspiration to me, and I think it was an inspiration to many others who were watching her journey of her holding her head high in the face of terminal diagnosis, and holding her faith through that whole journey. And I just want to make that correlation that when the prayer entered it into the equation, particularly on that collective scale, that's when that moment happened. And then Dr. Melisko reached out. So you went down to UCSF, you got a PET scan. Dr. Melisko reached out and let us know that she had stage 4, that the cancer had spread throughout the bones, and that it was in the spine, and it was all over the place, and there was a big tumor in the spine, and it was devastating news. And she also mentioned that that day she had come out of an oncology conference where the pharmaceutical company that creates the medicine that Jenni ended up taking had come out with a new protocol for the type of and it happened to be for the specific gene type of cancer that you had, right?
Yes, but the protocol that she's talking about is the one that they wanted to put me on that included chemo that I never
Right.
did.
Okay, so that's all important stuff. So there was a new protocol that included chemo that was released the day that we found out that Jenni had stage 4 cancer. So that was like for me, I was like, oh, there's something going on here with God's sovereign hand over all of
And
this.
this protocol was getting people an average of 4 years.
Right.
And that was hopeful.
That was the good news. The good news then at that point was that, it's not like 6 months, it's 4 years and maybe 10. And we were kind of grappling with that whole reality. And then the next day, it was the next day, right? It was the next day we were doing these Bible reading with the church. Everybody's reading through the Bible in a year. And it began the book of Job the next day. Like, I don't see those kind of things as coincidence. I was like, okay, here we go. We're being sifted. Something's happening here. Like, God's got his hand on this.
Yeah. So 2 things happened that day. Well, I mean, getting the call the night before obviously was devastating. It just devastated our whole family. And the next morning, we woke up and we took a walk around the block. And we were talking about how much time do we have? What do we want to do with the time we have left? And what I had been researching about how long people live with what I had, And all of a sudden, this hummingbird comes,
Oh, that's right.
flies into the middle of the road. We're walking down the middle of the road and stops in front of us and hovers and just chirps and flutters and hovers in front of us. And to me, that was a message from God. Like, I've got this. Stay in the moment. Like, don't worry about tomorrow. You are going to be okay. And I was feeling that still from when he had said it before, and it was kind of like a cognitive dissonance, because it was like, wait, but he said I was going to be okay, but now it's stage 4.
Right.
And that hummingbird moment was like, no, I'm going to keep on believing that I'm going to be okay.
Right. And through all this, I'm kind of grappling with this stuff because I told you about my previous relationship with God, with healing, and I was starting to wrestle with like, does healing really happen? Like, do my
Mm.
prayers are my prayers effective? Like, am I gonna still be a devoted follower of Christ if my wife doesn't make it? And just grappling with all those things, and I think somewhere in there you have to come to terms with. I came to terms with the fact that I'm not in control of this and that God is and that I can trust him. That my only thing I could do was entrust the care of my wife to him. Like I let it go into his care. And I think that's really important to come to a place, for at least for me, where where there's surrender to God's will in it, regardless of what the outcome is, and not knowing what the outcome is going to be, trusting him. And it was hard and it was scary and it sent me on all kinds of journeys of questioning, my faith in various ways. And okay, so shortly after that we went down to Monterey for a Spartan race, and to go to the aquarium.
Hmm.
And you had a bit of a journey there.
Yeah, so this Spartan race had been planned kind of as like a victory, like cancer didn't take me down kind of thing with my mom, and I had tried to run in April kind of in preparation for this, and I could not run. Like I felt like I had buckets full of concrete strapped to my feet, and my legs didn't want to move, and it was really painful. And I just thought, man, I'm really out of shape. And then, so we get to the Spartan race, and my doctor was like, absolutely not, you can't do that. And I was starting to I'd been having pain for months that I was kind of blowing off as I worked out too hard, I strained a muscle, weightlifting, all these things, and wasn't um, thinking that it was related to cancer at all. So we're at that race, and I'm just watching everybody else do their thing, and Hattie wanted me to come with her for her little bitty obstacle thing, and so I'm kind of like jogging along with her and having so much pain trying to jog. And Eva hadn't been able to run because she was really ill and was vomiting all over the place. And I picked her up and carried her back to where we got on the bus to go back to the parking lot. And, everybody was kind of like, what are you doing? You can't carry her. And it caused significant pain that continued on after that. And I was so... It was like a reality check kind of moment where I was like, I can't even do for my kids what they need from me. And it's just going to get worse. And so that was a really hard thing to face in that moment.
And that wasn't of much help either because Eva was puking and she needed to be carried on somebody's back or on their front. And I was like, sorry, kid, you're going to have to buck up and walk through this one because I am not going to get puked on.
So then the following weekend, Eric came, he anointed me at our home and prayed for me and asked if he could talk about what was going on with us in church and have people called up for prayer. And we were like, absolutely, yes. So that was the first second Sunday in June.
Yeah. So Eric, can I chat about that? So Eric basically invites Jenni up to be prayed for. I don't recall having an experience like that in our church previously. There was all kinds of people coming, stepping forward that people were laying their hands on and praying for them. Jenny's sister was there, her niece was there, our daughters were there. Everybody was laying hands on Jenny and praying for her, and it was a palpable move of God. It was one of those moments when you just can feel the heaviness of the Spirit of God present. That people were just crying. I mean, it was like, for me, it was one of the most beautiful milestones in my relationship with Twin Cities, because I've been pining for a move of God like that, the entire time that I've been a Christian. So that was like really meaningful to me. Although I did kind of grill our pastor a little bit on the other side of that, but I'll leave that conversation. That was kind of like one of my Peter moments. We'll leave that one, let that one go. But and then what was happening on the other side of that?
Let's see. So I'd had my bone biopsy just a few days before that. I don't think I had the results yet. And then the results came back after that prayer, and we did find out with that result that it was HER2 positive, which means we could use that new protocol that came out that could get me,
That's right,
4 years, likely. And then also it didn't have any hormone receptors, which meant I didn't have to suppress my hormones
Right.
with medication and surgery, which was what had been the plan,
Right.
and has like devastating side effects.
Right. So that's right. So at first it was like, okay, mastectomy is going to solve this, and then wait a minute, now that it's metastasized, mastectomy is off the table. And then it was like, okay, well, if it's like the same cancer type that it was before, then you're going to have to get these shots and get your get a
ovaries
you're going to have
removed.
to have a hysterectomy, but it's going to be okay. And it was kind of one of those things. And this is like devastating to Jenny, to the thought of having to shut off her female parts, and then it turns out it doesn't have the hormone receptors, the estrogen receptors on it, so the hysterectomy is off the table, and then so now at this point we are looking at a chemo protocol with this what do they call it? It's
So it's an antibody conjugate. It's a drug that combines chemotherapy with monoclonal antibodies.
So the short story is they have this new protocol that's this medicine. It's a protein that attaches to the cancer receptors, to receptors on the cancer that trigger your immune system to attack the cancer cells.
Yes.
So it turns your immune system on against the cancer cells. And then it has this feature where it delivers chemo directly to the cancer cells, mm-hmm. because of that same mechanism. And so this is sounding reasonably optimistic. And somewhere was it right around that time when Bree and Melissa and Cheryl and Lisa? Okay.
So this was a month before that.
Okay.
So it was, so my options were that and radiation, and the doctor was really pushing for radiation on my spine, and I had looked into it and was like, that's really for pain. My pain's not terrible. I think I want to see what the drugs do to help with the pain and not have all the side effects of radiation, but I was willing to meet with the radiation oncologist. And so I went down to meet with the radiation oncologist. The few days before that appointment, my pain was increasing intensely, like by significant amounts every day. And that day that I went to see the radiation oncologist, it was, I would say, on par with childbirth. I was in intense
So
pain.
there's a big tumor on, what is it, T11?
T11 and T8.
And
that
T8.
were really close to my spinal cord.
So it goes from like, okay, well, it looks like it's stage 4 out, and now it's like, wow, the pain is really ramping up. And then, okay, like all of a sudden they rearrange the whole radiation schedule at UCSF to get her in there in a week instead of a month. And then right as she's going in there, the pain goes from like, relatively manageable to like out of control, debilitating pain. and then she goes in for this radiation, and it was
And
like
so
5 days of radiation.
well, they did some scans that first day when I was making the decision, and I got to see the scans. The doctor pulled them up and showed them to me as soon as I got out of the machine, and was like, "This is May, and this is now." And so it was like less than it was like exactly a month later, and the tumors were significantly larger and really dangerously close to my spinal cord. And
Okay, go ahead.
okay, so I got to see this cross-sectional side view of my spinal cord, and this was another one of those like reality moments where I could see like pretty much.
Hold on. Okay.
So it was like every single vertebrae had multiple tumors, and the whole thing just looked like Swiss cheese, and I was like, that's real. Like that's my spine right there that I'm looking at. And it was just like I didn't want to accept it. And it was another one of those things that really like brought the gravity of the whole situation to me. And I decided that day, based on all those things that we found out there, that going forward with radiation was the best thing to do. What was I just thinking? Oh yeah, because I asked, so if these tumors that are like so close to my spinal cord start pushing on the spinal cord, then what? And the doctor said, then radiation is off the table, and we take out that portion of your spine, we put in rods to support your body, basically, and I decided to take a chance with the radiation side effects. But that meant that we couldn't start the chemo protocol that we were planning on starting that week. So we did radiation and started just antibodies. And so that what they had told me when I was getting the radiation was that this is what's going to happen. About a week and a half after you're done with these 5 days of radiation, you're going to get a significant increase in pain. We call that a flare, because all of the tumors are going to swell first. And so you're going to have increase in pain and symptoms, and then it'll take several weeks for that to get better. 3 days into the radiation, and when we started the antibodies, the 4th day we had to take off because it was a weekend, so we had a little break. And it was the first time in several weeks that I could sit without pain. So things had started getting better, and that wasn't supposed to happen yet. It was supposed to get worse first, a couple weeks out. And it started getting a little bit better each day after that. And then a couple weeks out, when I was supposed to have the pain flare, I didn't have a pain flare in the pain that I was having before, but I had significant esophageal pain that made it hard to eat or drink anything from the radiation, because I had gotten burns inside of my esophagus from the radiation. And I was having an appointment with my doctor, and I was trying to decide, do we start the chemo or do we keep on just doing antibodies? And I had been leaning towards just antibodies, and then I got really scared and was like, I started reading articles about, antibodies will only get you so many months, but the chemo conjugate, like this new protocol, like that could get me 4 years. Like, why would I not do that and be there for my family? And so we got on the Zoom with my doctor, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. We're doing the chemo. And we started talking about what was going on with me, and she was like, you have significant burns in your esophagus. We can't start chemo until that's healed. And so we'll do it the next round. And in between that appointment and the next round, we had a prayer session with some of our friends from church and friends from another church. And they came to our house, and our children participated. And this is among many other prayer sessions that we had with many people.
Right, Dan McKenzie and Lisa was one, but that was where was that in
and
the timeline?
O'Briens.
Yeah, we went over to Tom and Jesse O'Brien's. We were going for it. I mean, we drove up to Bethel for healing. There was that night when Melissa and Cheryl
and Lisa and Bree and
Gabriel came over. We invited Dan McKenzie and Dan Prout to come, and neither of them could make it, but Dan Prout sent a message, and he said he's praying for completion. And I took that as a prophetic word over that prayer session.
And that day also, Melissa had sent us a podcast.
Oh, it was that day?
Yes.
Oh, that's
of a
right.
woman
Oh, that's right.
Who had cancer throughout her bones.
Right.
And was miraculously healed.
Right.
And I listened to that podcast throughout the day that day.
Right. Yes, and our faith was built by that.
Oh,
and that was
her story was amazing.
That was incredible. I mean, the grit of this woman. And
Kathleen Young, if you want to look her up.
She's amazing. But it was super inspiring to see somebody else who had a very similar diagnosis and who had success
and 6 kids just like us.
And 6 kids and bone cancer. Yeah, so all those pieces came together on that same day. We had our friends over. These are like Holy Roller Pentecostal folks, a lot of them. Some of them were, some of them weren't. But we were like, the kids were there.
We had music.
We had worship music. Some of the kind of worship music that really stirs your spirit. Everybody was laying hands on Jenni.
Even the children.
The children were laying hands on her and praying healing over her. We were, speaking in tongues and prophesying recovery over her. And Bree and Gabriel, I think, have a real special gift in that arena. And
we could just feel.
We could feel the presence of God, and it felt complete then. It felt complete then. Like I took Dan's word over that day when he prayed for completion as a prophetic declaration over that healing session. And from that time on, we believed you were healed.
Yeah. My pain was completely gone. I had so much, I still have so much energy, and was like, I have been feeling terrible for years. And it was one of those, like, you don't know how bad you feel until you feel better. And I felt so much better. And I was telling Matthew, I was telling everybody, like, I believe I'm healed.
Right. And I believed it too at that point.
Yeah. So going into my next appointment with my doctor, and she was like, had all the orders set and signed for me to start chemo. And I said, no.
She said, I believe I'm healed.
I believe I'm healed. And I want to...
You want to see how it goes.
The PET scans.
Yep. You want to see how it goes on the other side of that, of the scans and the results before you make a decision to incorporate all this toxic treatment into your body. And that's where we got pretty excited about what God was doing and believed that she was healed. And I mean, Jenni believed that she was going to be healed the whole time, but that's when my faith really grew. And then it was a waiting game for the next PET scan, and that's where it, fast forward, I ended up reaching out to Kathleen Young. Those folks were praying for us over in Ohio. Since we've made plans, we're actually going to Kathleen's church in Ohio in October. I ended up meeting the guy who interviewed her for Kathleen for this. For his podcast. I'm flying over there in October to Birmingham, Alabama, and then into Tuscaloosa, and come to find out there was like a big revival at the college there. So all these pieces are all coming together in such a beautiful way. But we.
Oh, and the day that we're going to Kathleen's church to speak about my healing is the anniversary of the day that she was given 11 months to live.
Right. So October 19th was the anniversary of the date when she was told that she only had 11 months to live. So it's like a special celebration in their church. That happens to be the day that we're scheduled to be there. Jenny's going to be sharing her story with their congregation over there that day. And, two people separately in two different healing events. We went and had Dan Prout lay hands on us, or like pray for us, pray for Jenny's healing. He spoke life over her and some inner healing work about some things that had happened early on. And there was two different groups of people, and I can't remember. I think it was Dan McKenzie and somebody else.
And then I think it was Bree and Gabriel.
Bree and Gabriel both said that part of Jenny's healing was going to come through her gift with song and worship. And we're excited about that.
And then through the prayer time that we had with Dan Prout, brought up a song that I used to sing my childhood.
That's right. Oh, Hell is for Children.
Yes,
right?
Looking back on it, I was singing curses over myself as a child, and I, after that prayer session, I came home and I rewrote that song with a blessing for children and sang that version instead.
Yeah, so she rewrote Hell is for Children to Heaven is for Children. And that was just like those kind of moments are these milestones in the progression of this story that just are evidence for us on a spiritual level that God had his hand in this stuff the entire time. And so here I am witnessing all this stuff happening and kind of going like, what is going on, Lord? This whole thing is so intense and so many people are involved and we're excited. We got to a point where we were excited about the coming test results. And so Jenny went down there last week.
Yeah, the 28th. And I was laying in the PET scan machine and praying. Going down there, I'm like singing these worship songs about healing and just like praising God and smiling and laughing out because I know that I'm healed. And I'm in the PET scan machine and I'm praying, God, glorify yourself through these scans. I'm believing no matter what that my healing is happening, but so that your work can be seen.
Yes.
Like
let these results come back with medical evidence that cancer is gone.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing for me. I was like, Lord, we're going to believe she's healed regardless of what those test results say. But if you could set it up so that the test results come back with evidence of her being clear of cancer, I would really appreciate that, because it would be it would grow my faith, and it would help us to be able to share this not as a hopeful zealous sort of I've heard it swinging from the chandeliers version of Christianity, but like actual medical evidence that a radical healing had occurred, and that's just what happened. They said they weren't going to have the results back until Tuesday of the following week.
Yeah, they said maybe Tuesday, by the time I had my appointment scheduled at 5 p.m., I would have the results. But they called me at 10 a.m. on Friday morning, Labor Day weekend, as we're getting ready to leave town to go to Tahoe for a family weekend, and we're like, you've got to look at your PET scan results. They look great.
Yeah. So we look at the PET scan results, and there's no detectable metabolism of sugar in the PET scan result, and all they could say is it's either gone or it's significantly reduced. Like they could not find metabolism of sugar.
And we look at the pictures, the videos of the tumors, and there's no tumors to be seen.
There's no tumors in there
in these pictures.
And so we're just like thrilled. I mean, I can't even tell you like what an answer to prayer that is. I mean, for me, what that's done for my faith, I really felt the Lord telling me that I may have forgotten about my heart for his miraculous healing ability, but he didn't forget my prayer. And the fact that he used my wife to that end, I never saw that coming. And the impact that all of this has had on our church community and the building of faith. I mean, Pastor Eric sent us a song that somebody had written about Jenni's healing from like this third party perspective. I don't know this woman yet. I can't wait. I'm hopeful that Jenni sings this song with this woman one day. I don't know, but she's recording a professional version of it that we can share with you guys soon. And I guess at the end of the day, you know, in Thessalonians, it talks about rejoicing always and praying continuously and giving thanks in all circumstances. And I've wrestled with those verses for a lot of my life, and asked myself, how could somebody rejoice when they get news like this? And you'd have to trust God so completely, with no evidence of favorable outcomes, and just know that you can take him for his word, that he works all things for good for those who love him and called for his purposes. And even if the thing didn't go the way that we would hope, that we could trust him to take care of us and our kids and our family, and that his hand is in this whole thing. And I just I don't think words can really do justice to where I'm at with this whole thing at this point. Like, I feel like I've been, coming to terms with the fact that this woman that I love, that I commit to spend the rest of my life with, might actually be a short-lived, while very wonderful period of my life, is a pretty heavy pill to swallow. To be sitting here on the other side of this with, at least without that hanging over our heads, is such a relief I can't even begin to tell you. And when I hear about how this is impacting other people in our church community and growing their faith and inspiring them to trust Jesus and want to know him more and pray more and believe more, I've literally been walking down the road just in tears, overwhelming tears of reverential awe and gratitude for what he's doing in all of this. So we just wanted to share all that with you, so that, because some people don't know that Jenni turned down the chemo. Some people don't know that she chose to do the monoclonal antibodies. Another thing you don't know is that Jenni and I are pretty avid about our health with fitness and nutrition, and that we've really studied it quite a lot. As a matter of fact, Jenni's taking a training to help her basically learn how to improve people's metabolic health and
to coach people through all of the adjunct things that you do through a cancer journey.
As many of you may or may not know, Jenni's a nurse practitioner. She has a master's degree in as a midwife nurse, and I guess my point with that is she has a scientific mind, and she's highly intelligent, and she's made a study of this of like the stuff that you can do with your health. And Jenni was maintaining therapeutic ketosis through all of this, and not through all of it. She had a little glucose blood monitor that was able to tell her whether or not she was in therapeutic ketosis or not, and she found out she wasn't.
Yeah, I was really struggling with it. I mean, I have been eating no sugar, no grains, and super low glycemic, low carb diet since before the first cancer diagnosis, and have really been strict about it, and still was chasing high blood sugars all day long, every day, and never getting
so
into
ketosis.
ketosis.
In other words, when she would test her blood sugar had high glucose levels in it, even though she wasn't eating sugar or grains or carbohydrates at all, period. And that's where you found out that you were eating too much protein. Your body wasn't digesting all the protein, and it was converting it into glucose in her blood. And she found that out and reduced the level of protein and increased the level of fat, and her body dropped into therapeutic ketosis, like on the textbook therapeutic ketosis, and she's able to just maintain that from there, which is pretty remarkable. Her doctor was like, "You're actually doing that? Like, nobody does that." So there's all these things, and I think the reason I wanted to share all these things with you is because we're not some hardliner, like God's going to heal us even though we're dying kind of hardcore. Like I look at it like God revealed to us that there was a new protocol for treatment that came out in the medical community the day that she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. That was God moving in her care. The fact that she didn't end up with a mastectomy, that was God moving in her care. He saved her from that. She still has her parts intact. The fact that it wasn't the type of cancer that required her hysterectomy. Like, these are important, really important things for Jenni. That's evidence that God was, involved in, had his hand and was sovereign over her care.
They were able to get my radiation right when the pain was like
right when the pain
unbearable.
became unbearable. You ended up with radiation. That was evidence of God's hand in all of this. The move of God that we felt in our church and the impact this has had on our church community and all the people praying, that was evidence of God's hand in all of this. The fact that you responded so well to prayer and treatment, and that we knew in our spirits, and that you knew that you were going to be well the whole time, and that we knew in our spirits on the other side of those prayers that you were healed, was evidence of God's hand in your recovery.
Now, I just want to add, as far as like the knowing that I was going to be well. So there was a time where, so God told me everything was going to be okay, and he and I both wrestled through this, like, is a miracle going to happen for me? What does everything's going to be okay mean?
Does that mean we're going to heaven kind of be okay?
Yeah, and there were points where it was like, okay, well, if my journey through my suffering is to bring others closer to Jesus, and I am being sacrificed for that, then I can be grateful for that as well.
And then I was like,
maybe there won't be a healing. But there was a, and it was like, okay, I'm choosing this martyrdom kind of thing. And in that prayer session that we had with Melissa and Lisa and Cheryl and Bree and Gabriel had said, I have this word for you that's coming up for me, that you have a choice in this.
You have to choose it. You have to ask for it.
And I chose in that moment, and I woke up each day, every day, I'm saying, I choose healing. I accept the gift of healing that God has given me. And what is it? Psalm 118:17, I think it is. But I shall not die, but I will live and proclaim what the Lord has done. That was my everyday mantra. Like, I am gonna live.
Right.
He is healing me, and I receive it.
Right. And then so for me, there was this thing of like, no, none of this like die as a martyr because that's noble and it glorifies God business. That's not what it talks about in the Bible. There's one example of Paul saying, I have a thorn in my flesh that won't be healed because it brings me humility, and that's a good thing. But there's like 999 other examples of God healing people and revealing himself. And it says that Jesus is a perfect example of the will of God, and all he did was walk around and have compassion for people and pray for them and restore their sight and raise the dead and heal the sick. And I'm going like, no, Jesus gave us authority in his word to overcome the work of the enemy. That is our job, to take authority, not go to God and say, dear God, will you please, enact your will on behalf of my wife. No, he said, you tell the mountain to go in the sea, and if you have a grain of mustard seed sized faith, it will be done. Then people were revealing stuff to me about prayer, and God revealed to me as well to go on this journey of learning about prayer, and all these scriptures came up about praying in such a way that where you believe that you're going to receive what you're praying for, because you're praying in accordance with the will of God, and you're obedient to him, and your obedience pleases him. And it just went on and on. And so at some point it went from, dear God, I hope you heal my wife, to please heal her. Dear God, please heal my wife, to cancer be gone in the name of Jesus Christ, because I have authority as his child to overcome the attack and the works of the enemy. That's I get that kind of privilege as his child to tell Satan to kick rocks, and there is nothing in God's kingdom that has to do with death, stealing, and destroying. It all has to do with wholeness, life, and abundance, and we shall live. So there was all kinds of things that were going on and all that stuff. There was many layers of God's hand moving, people revealing stuff to us, prayer, nutrition, caring for our bodies, dealing with some treatment decisions and not dealing with some other treatment decisions. And when we got that call last Friday that there was no detectable cancer, I knew that a miracle had been done. That to go from like 2 months prior seeing 100 tumors scattered through her spine like Swiss cheese to seeing none in that short of a period of time, that, my friends, is a miracle. And you know, I just can't tell you like how grateful I am. And you know, I'm choosing to stand on the fact that God is a good father, and that is what he wants for my wife. And I don't care what kind of doubts try creeping in. I stand firm in the word of the Lord, and I choose victory, and I choose faith, and I choose to celebrate with joy the gift that's been given to us in an opportunity to be reborn to life once again together anew. Like, it's almost like we just got married and we got reborn, and we get to decide what we're going to do with the rest of our lives. I love you.
Oh, so moving forward, we're not changing anything. We're moving forward believing that I've been healed, that I'm going to continue to be healed. I'm going to continue to get the treatment that I've been getting, the antibodies, every 3 weeks, and the shot that I get to keep my bone from breaking down. And then what we've kind of discussed with the doctors that at about 2 years out, with continued clear scans, then we discuss the possibility of getting off medication.
And so the doctor said, you are not going to die from this. And it went from, you might die in 2 years, you might die in 4 to 10 years, to you're not going to die from this. And so I just want to lift praise to the Lord for what he's done in all this. I want to thank you all for your prayers and your continued prayers for the total complete healing of my life, or my wife, and our life. And you know, and we're just thrilled to be able to be the grateful recipients of your love and the love of God in my wife's healing. So thank you for that. We good? Mm-hmm. Okay.